Welcome back to the KDPG Sunday edition. The recent deaths of Kate Spade and Anthony Bourdain have brought suicide back to the fore again, and we have two guests this morning to discuss their personal experiences with this. I should just say, Colleen Seibert is the chair of loss and healing programs for the Western Pennsylvania chapter of the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. She lost her sister to suicide. And the Reverend Jim Bertotti is pastor at St. Peter's Reformed Church in Zelienople in Butler County, and he attempted suicide at the age of 18. You both have kind of explained the reasons behind your involvement in this particular thing, but Colleen, I'd like to go back to your sister for just a moment, because you indicated that she was, when you were growing up together, everything seemed fine, but somewhere in her early 20s, she became depressed. And you say that you have really no reason for that except the onset of some sort of mental illness on this thing. Is that how you found with the people you've been counseling? It's the same sort of thing, or are there a lot of different reasons sometimes?
I think yes and no. So a lot of the folks that Pastor Jim and I have had in our support group have had a variety of reasons. You know, folks that suffer from PTSD have a higher inclination to tend toward suicide. There's 22 suicides a day for those that come back from the war and suffer from PTSD. Others, there could be a variety of reasons. I think that mental health and mental illness is something that we need to certainly spend more time and more funding, more research towards, because it is the 10th leading cause of death in the United States. In your case, you know the reasons why you attempted suicide, and you said that you didn't want to have that pain and suffering for your family as to what had happened to you. Correct. On that. Have you found that that's a case at all for a lot of other people, that wasn't necessarily a mental illness aspect that triggered this for you? You became depressed over it, obviously, but that wasn't on some unknown cause. You knew the cause. And PTSD is another example of that. Is that what you have found also? I mean, I'm trying to ascertain as to is there just an underlying reason we just don't know, or is there usually a trigger that you've been able to find?
I think that's yes to both of those things. I think that there are triggers that are set off in any different person, depending on who they are, but there can also be that underlying sense of again, despair or hopelessness from a mental aspect. So
both of you in the course of this conversation, before the break and even after, have said, well, get help. What is help exactly, and where do you get it?
I think the big help for us, at least for Colleen and I, being able to come together and show love and support through the support group, knowing that we're available for anybody to come and talk to. And what we have been hearing from people that come and join our group is that they become part of grief support groups, but when they go and immediately say the word suicide, it's like walls immediately go up. People shut down the conversation because they don't know how to respond to it. Where in our support...
So what is a response?
Well, you mean in our group?
Your group or in someone's home?
I think a common in our group is support, a constant show of love. Like, we get it. We know exactly what you're feeling. We know exactly what you're thinking. We know how you are going. Don't let anybody tell you that you have to grieve a certain period and then you're over it. We have a person that's a part of our group that lost a husband and her son to suicide, and 20 plus years ago, but still feels the stigma and the hurt and the pain of that. So coming together on a monthly basis allows her to express her grief, allows her to be a source of comfort and encouragement for newer people that are coming into the group. And that's what's so encouraging. I mean, we would love to be put out of business and say, well, nobody showed up at the support group.
Yeah, but this is a group that meets once a month. Say you've got somebody who's imminently contemplating this.
Sure.
Can't wait for 28 days.
Sure.
What do you do?
That's when we refer them, obviously, to the AFSP network, to the hotline, the suicide hotline, the text number, the 741-741. Just get that information into people's hands as quickly as
What does
they
that
can.
hotline do? What do they say? What do they do?
I think what they are there is really to talk someone off the ledge, because at that time they're in a state of desperation. They're in a state of of I don't know what to do, I need help.
But they've at least made the call.
But they've at least made the call. And that is, to me, that is a source of encouragement in itself, because they're making that first step that they realize they need some help. And so the sad part is when someone like a Kate Spade or an Anthony Bourdain don't make it known that they're suffering.
I have to go back to your situation for just a second.
Sure.
You attempted suicide.
I did.
Did you get counseling afterwards?
I did.
Okay. So I mean, and you feel that does make a difference in.
I absolutely do. And maybe this is where my passion comes in, but my pastor is the one that came up beside me and just walked me through the whole ordeal, letting me know that he loved me and that I could reach out to him in times of trouble, in times of feeling if I ever run through that again. And so it's that constant.
Have you run through that again?
Sure. You know, there's someone who suffers from that issue many times will question whether this is right for me. Now, the beauty is I have an incredible, lovely wife and two beautiful children and a grandson. And so whenever I get stressed or frustrated or angry or not sure of what's going on, I have coping mechanisms that I get to put in place.
We know what caused yours.
Yep.
We're not sure about your sister, but why do you both, if you can answer this question, why do you think we're seeing this increase, as we just saw in that report, a 25%
what's up
increase?
with that?
Yeah, why do we have this surge, a quarter of more?
It's a $1 million question. I think that more and more people, you know, and it's 2018, we've got more stressors in our life. There's more pressure. Even from a young age, you know, there's bullying. There's a whole facet of issues. And I think that if people don't have the proper coping skills, if they don't seek help, if they don't recognize that they need help, I don't think that anybody wakes up and thinks, well, today I'm going to take my own life. I think that once you get to that space, you want to stop the pain. You want to stop the hurt. You oftentimes.
This is a dramatic rise. We've had people who have been in depression since the beginning of time, but this is a dramatic rise. How much of this is, we read in the press, copycat, or not so much copycat as prompted? People see this and prompt and maybe see it as a solution. What do you think?
I don't believe in the copycat thing.
You don't?
No, I don't buy into that at all.
So what accounts for 25% increase?
But again, the $1 million question, I wish I had an answer for you. But I think that, again, the pressures of life, to succeed, to be everything that you want to be everything
those pressures
that people expect.
25% greater than 2 years ago?
Potentially, maybe. You know, every person walks their own journey.
Yeah.
You know, my journey was completely different than Leanne's. But again, we both were feeling the same feelings of hopelessness and despair. And so what do you do with that? How do you reach out? Who do you reach out to? In my particular situation, who could I trust with that information? I was an 11-year-old. Do you really think they're going to believe an 11-year-old over an adult? No, they're going to take the adult's word for it. And things have changed when it comes to abuse. And so maybe it's come to the forefront with everything that's going on. But
I would say you have a better chance of having someone believe you now.
Correct.
Than you did
36 years ago, that wasn't the case. It was, we're going to shove this under the rug.
Now, you both indicated, the pressures of the day and that sort of thing. I don't have the statistics, so I'll ask you. Are suicide rates up as much across the globe and also in underdeveloped countries? In other words, are we just feeling this pressure to succeed in a society?
I'm not certain of those statistics.
I'm not either.
The statistics that we're familiar with
They may not be able to report them in some underdeveloped countries as
Correct.
well.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
So,
Correct.
right.
How about age?
Go ahead.
How about age?
Yeah.
So,
I'll tell you, when I got involved with the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, I think what really astounded me was those that are senior citizens. The rate of suicide among that age group truly blew me away. I mean, these guys, they've worked their whole life. They've reached the goals that they've set out for themselves. They've done all the things that they want to do in life, and yet we have quite a few members, a part of our group, that are in that category.
I'll have to tell you a very quick story. When I was a young reporter in the early mid-'70s in Louisville, Kentucky, there was a murder-suicide. I went to go cover it and talked with a police officer, and I said, well, who was it, whatever. And he said it was a couple, he was, I believe, 89 and she was 87. And he said that he took her life and then took his own. And my reaction was just what you said.
Right.
89, why would they do something like this? And he said, he's an older guy, he said, son, as you go on in your career, you're going to find this happens more and more and more with elderly people because this is their only way out. Somebody's suffering terminally illness or something like this, and they make a pact.
Agreed. It's a silent sickness. It's a silent pact, as you say, which is, I can't even imagine that, but when you love someone that deeply.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we're almost out of time, but you do have a walk or something coming up soon. I would like to hear about that.
We do. We have the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention Pittsburgh Walk is on August 25th at Highmark Stadium. We had over 2,000 people attend last year, and it's a great opportunity for folks that have lost somebody to suicide or are suffering from mental health issues to come together.
All right, Colleen, Jim, thank you so much for being with us this morning.
My pleasure.
David and I'll be back with some final thoughts in just a moment.